Hey, Vita here, and today on Learn to Quiltworx, we're going to be talking about all the supplies that you need in order to make a Quiltworx pattern. So let's get started. The basics of supplies that you're going to need are all right here on the table, and we're going to talk about them. We're going to discuss why you need them. In my opinion, everything that you see here, with maybe the exception of the type of cutting rotary cutter that you use, is a must-have. So if you're going to do any paper piecing, the first thing that you need are add-a-quarter rulers. And I like to have a 6, a 12, as well as an 18-inch ruler in my stash at all times. Some of the larger patterns that Quiltworx has designed have very long points in them, and you do need a long ruler, okay? The next thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a folding template, and I like to use the template plastic that we used to use for making our quilting patterns and cutting out the shapes. And if you have a hard time seeing the edge of it, when you're folding back the template with your foundation papers, I suggest putting a bit of washi tape along the edge so it makes it easier to see. You're going to need a flat fabric glue stick, and it doesn't matter which brand you buy, but you do need to probably get this finer tipped one. You can replace the glue in them very easily. Usually when you purchase them, they come with the pen and one refill. If you're making Jungle Magnolia with me right now, you're going to want to make sure that you buy at least 1 or 2 packages of the refill cartridges. It doesn't really matter what brand you buy, because they're all made by the same company. They're just branded for the different companies like Sue Daly and Bowen and Soline. So it doesn't really matter which one you get. It's all the same glue, okay? And it doesn't really matter what color, because the glue comes in blue, pink, yellow. So it doesn't really matter what color either. So you're going to need that. You're going to need a seam ripper, unfortunately, but don't we all every time we start piecing? You're also going to need a purple thingy. This is very handy for multiple things while we're making Quiltworx patterns. You're going to need a stiletto, okay? You're going to need a repositionable glue stick. We use the repositionable glue stick for putting our templates in place before we cut our fabrics that we're going to be using while we're paper piecing. You're going to need some sort of marking instrument, like a white marking pen, a marking pencil, or you can use this style with the real fine chalk dispensing. This style, whatever you're most comfortable with, or maybe have already in your sewing room, but you're going to need something like this for marking your TRP lines. And you're going to need some flower pens. We don't use pens a whole lot, but it's good to have some flower pens handy. You're going to need a rotary cutter, of course. Now I have several here, and I use them for different things, and it's okay to cut your paper with them. In fact, there really isn't a way to avoid cutting paper when you're with your rotary cutters when you are foundation paper piecing. So you just want to make sure that you have plenty of spare blades that you can change it out when you need to. I like to have a 45, a 60, and I also like to have a Martelli cutter, because when I'm sitting down and I'm folding and trimming and doing that process of my paper piecing, it's actually more comfortable to be using a Martelli cutter than using one of these, because of the way that you have to put your wrist and also the angle that you're putting your shoulder. I find that this is way more comfortable, and when I don't use it and I use this style instead while sitting, that my rotator cuff begins to get aggravated. Another specific thing to Jungle Magnolia is that the pattern references a couple of Judy's rulers for your curved cutting, and that is the curved diamond cutting trimming ruler and the leaf ruler, okay? If you have made other patterns of Quiltworx, if you made the coral reef, then you probably already have the leaf ruler because it came in the pattern. And if you've done any of the diamond quilts, then you probably already bought the curved diamond ruler. If you do not have either one of these rulers, you can certainly use any curved ruler that you might have. If you long arm, you might have some curved rulers you could use. But if you don't have any curved rulers, I do recommend getting online at quiltworx.com, and you can find these two rulers. They're a really good investment. And then you're also going to need some binding clips. At least a 24-inch ruler. You need a nice long ruler for cutting your papers and getting everything ready, and for cutting your fabrics. You're also going to need a good supply of Ziploc bags. One of the main ways that we organize everything, and that is the key to success with a Quiltworx pattern, is to put all of our fabrics and our templates and our unit sheets into Ziploc bags, and I'll explain a little bit more of that later. Paper clips. You're going to need plenty of paper clips. They're super cheap, but they're a great way to clip your templates to your fabrics in order to organize everything for sewing. We recommend that you use a 50 weight thread. I like Aurifil. You can choose whatever brand you would like, but we use a 50 weight thread because it's a finer thread and it reduces the bulk in the seams. For Jungle Magnolia, we're going to be doing some applique, and we're going to be doing it on the machine. So if you're opting to do the basic machine applique, you're going to want to get some Japanese silk thread. I like the Kimono silk thread by Superior, in a color that matches the fabric that you're going to be appliquing for your dots and your veins on your leaves in Jungle Magnolia. You're also going to need some Microtex size 70 needles. A size 70 needle in conjunction with your 50 weight thread is going to give you a good perforation. They're a sharp needle. It's going to give you good perforation on your foundation papers and make it super easy to tear them off later on when we're done sewing our units and ready to piece everything together. Let's talk about your ironing station just a little bit. I like to make sure that I'm pressing everything on a wool mat. I use a dry iron that I've never put water in, and I absolutely love the Acorn Precision Pressing System. This consists of a refill bottle that I load into that pen, and I'm able to put a sugar-based starch right on my seam lines for all of my paper piecing, and it creates a very, very flat seam. The easiest and most efficient way of placing your fabrics on the back of your units for paper piecing is to use a light table. When I first started, I would trace the lines onto the back of the unit sheets so that I knew how far the fabric pieces needed to reach. Then I discovered the Caterpillar Glow light table. It makes it so much easier and, like I said, more efficient, because we're working on the back of the units. And if I don't have a light table, I've got to trace or mark those lines so that I know how much needs to be covered. This way, when I flip them over, I know exactly where to put my glue for my first piece and then position my fabric. Once you've placed your first piece and you're ready to start adding pieces for the folding, lining up your add a quarter ruler and trimming process, the light table really comes into handy because it allows you to be able to see for placing all of your next pieces throughout the process. If you have a light table that you've used for other things, we can add just the cutting mat to the top of the light table that you have. If you don't have a light table at all and you are interested in purchasing one, these can be drop shipped to you directly. You can just go to my website. My price is competitive with Amazon and all the rest. You place the order, and within about 2 to 3 days, it will be delivered to your door directly from Caterpillar. All of these items should be readily available in your local quilt shops, and remember to download the free PDF checklist. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Facebook at SoFly Quilts, as well as Learn to Quiltworx, and on Instagram and YouTube. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Happy quilting!